What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another Bring the Juice Colts podcast live stream. Guys, another live show coming to you today on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We're here talking about anything and everything NFL. Greatly appreciate all you guys tuning in. I'm your host, Eric Larger, and joining me, my good friend from college and my fellow co-host of the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast, my other channel on YouTube, Chase Steffes. Chase, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I can't wait to talk more football and see where this goes.
Yep, absolutely, man. Well, hey, listen, guys. So obviously, Chase, Browns fan. So if you guys want to roast him in the comments, feel free to do so. We have no problems with that here on a Colts channel, especially since they're better than us at this moment. So there's that. But we have another sports channel on YouTube called the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. It's linked to my channel, my personal channel. So if you guys want to check that out and subscribe, I highly encourage you do so. But today we got a lot of fun things to talk about. And then we might as well talk about the first thing that was biggest news over yesterday, I believe. And it was definitely, I'm sure it was scary for you, Chase, when you heard the news of this. I don't know if you saw it before I actually texted you about it, but obviously Myles Garrett and whoever the female passenger was with him involved in a single vehicle accident where he flipped his Porsche several times. Don't know what he was doing. I don't know, what he was doing to cause that to happen. But nevertheless, both him and the passenger sustained minor injuries. Both are presumed to be okay. But basically the status for Myles Garrett for this upcoming week of football is still up in the air, many leading towards the idea he may not play. He wasn't in the building today. What was your reaction to Myles Garrett and this incident report?
Well, first things first, I can't understand how heartless some people are, because when seeing this, my first initial reaction was hoping that he was okay.
Yeah.
And that he was totally fine and him and the passenger were fine. But I've seen a lot of people well, is he going to play on Sunday? It's dude, that should be the least of his concern, whether or not he's going to play. You want a star athlete like that on the field. It's going to hurt not having him out there, but, you want to make sure that, he's completely healthy, completely fine, and ready to go for future games. But when I found out that he was in the car accident, I had literally found out 5 minutes after you texted me. It came across my phone, and it was a scary thought, to say the least, but reports came out on what happened. There was no drugs or alcohol involved. What it was is he was driving home from the practice facility, and he had swerved to avoid hitting an animal. He overcorrected, and the road was wet, so he rolled end over end and totaled his Porsche. Obviously, he came out of there with bleeding from his ankle, bleeding from his face, and a bicep sprain. Other than that, he had minor cuts and bruises after that. So they said it's going to be up to the team doctors whether or not he plays this week, but I am leaning more towards he won't play until next week versus the Chargers. And, rightfully so. He should, rest up, heal his body, and make sure his mind is
understanding the extent of that injury.
Yeah, he's in the right mindset and ready to go. And honestly, I hope that the female passenger is completely fine and not shaken up with the whole ordeal, and won't have any mental issues from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the extent of the injuries for the passenger, but they said that she was also alert and responsive, same as Myles. Just some minor injuries here and there, but obviously, like you said, I mean, for a female passenger versus a gigantic football player like yourself, Myles Garrett, his kind of injuries could have probably not been as bad because, his body's used to taking punishment like that. But, for someone that's a lot smaller and not used to something like that, I would imagine it could have potentially been even worse. But
I got that in 6'4", 271 pounds. Obviously, it's not gonna hurt
like a freight train. Yeah,
it's not gonna hurt him that much because it's more body mass. I feel like somebody like my size who's smaller probably would have sustained maybe a broken bone. But the fact that he came out of there, they both came out of there without any fractures, without any broken bones is, a miracle. But, there was no drugs or alcohol involved, nothing like that. So everybody can put their mind at ease when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was just he was swerving to miss an animal. He is a big animal lover, so he didn't want to, hit and kill an animal or possibly cause more damage to himself.
Right.
So,
I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever hit a deer like straight on. I have, believe me. Those deer, man, they will screw your car up so bad if you hit one of those things. I've seen a deer literally destroy the front end of my car. I hit one of those things going 55 miles an hour one time, and it destroyed the front end of my car. Like, it was gone. Hunter Peterson with the $2 super chat. Thank you so very much. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you, Hunter. Greatly appreciate that. Hunter is a loyal subscriber on this channel, Chase. So he's a great guy. Also a Notre Dame fan. So I don't necessarily like that very much, but it's okay.
At least he's not a Michigan fan. So
yeah, exactly. You get it. You get it. Yeah, guys, be sure to like the stream if you can. Liking the stream helps get it out to more people. Greatly appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. The support on the channel over this last month has just been absolutely insane. Greatly appreciate all of you guys tuning in and supporting us. Just one last thing on the Browns, Myles Garrett. Yeah, he did suffer a shoulder strain and a bicep strain. Like you said, the week 4 status is uncertain at this point. Like you said, it's going to be up to the team doctors and on him to decide if, he's going to be capable of coming in. But either way,
it's the Falcons. I'm not too worried about it. So
yeah, all good. And also just want to say quick press here to Florida. Anyone that's in Florida right now or is moved out of Florida. I know we do have some people who watch these streams. We have some people who are fans of this podcast that are in Florida. Shout out to all of you. I really hope that everybody there is okay. Obviously, Hurricane Ivan's going through right now. And I think, Chase, they said that like at the beginning part of Tampa, I think they said that there were reports of like water over 7 feet high and near the coastline of Tampa right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of that place underwater. So really hope that everyone who is there, one of our guys, Max, who we just put on the podcast as a new member of the team, he lived in Tampa. So he had to evacuate because of this storm. Thankfully, he's back at his home in New Jersey. So he's safe and all is good there. Hope everybody else is staying safe out there because it looks a lot worse than what a lot of people thought.
Oh, yeah. And there's some places that's getting like 16 feet of water or more. And a lot of homes are being destroyed. A lot of people are going to be left homeless after this. So please have your thoughts and prayers out to all the people in Florida. Hopefully that they can make it out very safe and make sure that they come back to, homes that can be
this year. Prime members get
fixed
holiday
and brought back. So thoughts and prayers out to them. Hopefully everybody's okay. And on the football side of things, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are practicing in the Miami Dolphins facility down there in Florida, and it's to be determined whether or not there will be any games going on in the state of Florida this weekend. So
yeah, that will definitely be something to keep on notice. You're right. I mean, that game might end up getting moved to Minnesota at US Bank Stadium. Been there, beautiful stadium.
The Vikings aren't there this weekend, so that could be very
odd. I mean, I'm surprised that that's like the only contingent stadium. I'm surprised they're making a move all the way up north for that game, but I guess they had this plan for a while. Or
I'd move it to Hawaii if I was them. Like, they've got a stadium over there for
that
all
much
the Pro
traveling
Bowls.
that much traveling just seems like a total waste.
Yeah, but like, at least you won't have to worry about like the hardcore weather and everything. They've got a stadium over there for when they were doing the Pro Bowl games and everything. So it's not like they don't have it. They could use that as a contingency stadium if they need to. So
holy crap, man. Hold on a second. Okay. So Cody posted a short on YouTube of Air Blue, one of the Colts mascots from the game Sunday. Air Blue messing with somebody, and that video in the first 25 minutes has 11,000 views on it already. Holy cow. All right, I guess we need to post more of Air Blue on this channel a little bit more going forward. But let's go ahead and get back into NFL topics here. Let's get into the Chargers here real quick, Chase. We talked about it before we hopped in. Just news that defensive end Joey Bosa is having to have surgery on his groin area, will be placed on injured reserve. So he will be missing at least the next 4 games. And they said that it could be very possible that he misses at least 2 months with this surgery. So, I mean, Chase, we're in a situation here. You and I were talking about it. I mean, with all the injuries piling up for the Chargers right now, should we be worried about the Chargers' chances this season with so many key players either just coming back from injury or being injured just now?
I think we should be absolutely worried. I mean, the Chargers just lost their left tackle, Rashawn Slater, for the entire season with the torn bicep. And he was like one of the key pieces to keep Justin Herbert upright on the offensive line. Now that he's out, they're going to have a field day. Pass rushers are going to have a field day with him. Justin Herbert's still fighting a rib injury with potential cartilage still damaging his ribs and maybe a few broken ones. Keenan Allen's coming back. Yes, that's great. But you're still down Kenny Guyton, who just tore his ACL this past week. JC Jackson's out. He won't be back until next week, maybe the week after. And Derwin James is questionable. You've got a lot of injuries that are piling up on this team. And if they're not fully healthy, it's going to be hard for them to make a run. Maybe when they get their guys back midway through the season, they might be able to make a push towards the end. But it's a very strong possibility that they'll start off with a low record and maybe have a few wins here and there. I mean, they just got mollywopped by the Jags, and it's either the Chargers are that hurt or the Jags are just that good. And, we kind of overestimated them. So it's kind of remains to be seen type thing with the way that the Chargers are.
And it was weird because, I mean, the Chargers, when they got beat this last weekend, it's not like they just got beat. I mean, like you said, they got destroyed. So, even with all the injuries they were sustaining, you still would have thought they would have put up a lot better of a fight. But I think that the injuries that are piling up right now is very concerning. Slater being out for the majority of this season, if not all of it now.
All of it. Yeah, he tore his bicep.
All of it. I mean, that was he was turning into one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and losing that is huge. And then obviously Justin Herbert's not at 100% right now. Their inability to run the football right now is hurting them. Keenan Allen just now coming back from a lingering injury. And then you've got 2 or 3 big injuries on your defensive side with 2 or 3 of your best defensive players. I mean, this team, if they're not careful, this team could go down the rabbit hole very fast. I mean, this is a team that predicates itself on making big plays and forcing turnovers. And with all of these weapons going away right now, unfortunately, Chase, we have this 1 or 2 times a year, right, where a team at some point throughout the season starts having major injury issues, right? We saw that last year with the Baltimore Ravens, right? That was why the
Browns too.
Yeah, that was why the Baltimore Ravens last year had such a difficult time getting to the playoffs, because they had so many injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that it was impossible for them to win a lot of big games. And this year we're seeing it with the Buccaneers. A ton of their offensive production in offensive line is getting hurt every week. And it's making it very difficult for them to get any kind of consistency. And it's the same thing with the Chargers right now. Offensively, they can't really do much. And when you lose your best pass rusher and you lose one of your best corners and safeties, it's just impossible to keep up. And it definitely will be very interesting to see what they do going forward. But since we talked about the Jaguars, let's kind of just hop into that real quick. So I think the most surprising thing that nobody's talking about so far this season is the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars are one of two teams now that are undefeated. It's three. It's three. It's the Dolphins, it's the Jaguars, and it's the Eagles, who, by the way...
Jags aren't undefeated, Derek. They lost their first game of the season. They lost
their first one, right. I forgot about that. Forgot they lost to the Commanders. See, that's what I view of the Commanders. But Jacksonville going into the Eagles, one of the only undefeated teams left. But you've seen what the Jaguars have done, Chase. They should have won the game against the Commanders. They just didn't. Yeah. And then just not only destroyed the Colts, but then destroyed the Chargers the next week. I mean, is it at this point where we start saying that the Jacksonville Jaguars might actually be good?
Now, I want to pump the brakes for at least another week or two and judge them carefully, because this offseason, they did a great job supporting Trevor Lawrence with that offensive line. Getting Brandon Sheriff was a great pickup. Christian Kirk is starting to be worth that contract that they're paying him, because with the way that he's playing lights out. James Robinson kind of, showed why he's still the RB1 on this team. But I say the biggest piece that they had this offseason was firing Urban Meyer and getting Doug Peterson, a guy that has been to the big stage before, a guy that has played quarterback in this league, a guy that can lead offenses to, the potential that they need. Having him paired with Trevor Lawrence and the Jags is absolutely freaking huge. And the fact that they just beat the Chargers shows that they're trending in the right direction. I still had at least another year yet before the Jags were, going to be relevant and, able to compete, but I might, push that back to this year. If they can go into the Eagles and put up a fight with them and beat them, or even if they lose by a touchdown or a field goal, that just goes to show you how much more dominant this team is. Travon Walker's been playing well, and my opinion on him has changed. I thought that they should have hit Aiden Hutchinson, but Walker's been playing well. Devin Lloyd's been playing well. The secondary's been playing well. This whole defense has been playing well. And it's all because of that man that they got at the helm in Doug Peterson. So I think that the Jags are good. Let's give it another couple weeks, see what they can do, especially against the Eagles and how well they've been playing. And if they beat the Eagles, yes, we got a contention for them probably being the best team in the AFC South.
Yeah, I think that's one of the few things, right, that people are trying to use as an excuse to kind of discredit the Jaguars right now, is the fact that they beat a Colts team that right now is not playing well on the offensive side of the ball. And at that moment, I mean, the Colts were the worst team in the NFL that after week 2. I mean, they were really bad. So, I mean, people are trying to discredit using that. And then on top of it, we use the argument that, yeah, the Chargers were very, very banged up, and that, would it have been a different game had, Justin Herbert been completely healthy, and that they had Joey Bosa in for the whole game, and if Keenan Allen was there, and if Rashawn Slater didn't get hurt, if this was a more healthy football team, how would it have actually gone down? But at the end of the day, I mean, give mad credit to Doug Peterson. He is clearly the front runner to be coach of the year right off the bat for this. I mean, you could say right behind him is Nick Sirianni right now for the Eagles. So you got two teams right now that have coach of the year candidacy written all over them, or just at the start of this season. Because, I mean, let's admit it. I mean, the Jaguars have done a very good job, like you said, with Trevor Lawrence. And I think the game plan that they have going, I think that they have a good game plan for him right now. I think the weapons that I think Christian Kirk is doing a lot better than what I think some people anticipated him doing right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that's really what's helping is he's hitting all of his weapons. He's being very dynamic. He's not throwing the ball down the field a ton, but he's dissecting defenses and reading them a lot better because of the ability for him to stay in the pocket and do things like that. And they got a good running game right now. James Robinson is playing like what we saw him in his rookie year. He even looks maybe even better than what he did his rookie year. And he was, one of the best running backs in the league that year.
Yeah, shout out to James Robinson coming back off of a torn ACL torn Achilles that quickly. and able to play week 1 is absolutely huge. And I want to step in and say that Doug Peterson is the Demondo key factor here, because with him, he is getting Trevor Lawrence to play to his full potential. And I feel like, we were all really high on Trevor Lawrence. We said that he was the best product to come out in the draft since Andrew Luck. And, we had yet to see that. And now with the way that he's playing this year, if Doug Peterson can keep this going and keep developing Trevor Lawrence the right way, he could finish the end of the season as potentially a top 10 quarterback. But like I said, it's still early. We still got to see what he can do against a lot of good teams. But I'm picking the Jags this week against the Eagles, because with Doug Peterson going into Philadelphia, his old turf, he's going to want this win more than anything, and he's going to coach these guys up to one hell of a game. It's going to be a good matchup with these two.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Sirianni's an offensive genius, and Doug Peterson's done a great job of getting of having his team go up against some of the best and keeping them in the game the whole way. Bruce, it's still too early on Leonard right now. The general consensus is that we believe he's going to play Sunday, but obviously we won't know until after Friday when they make the report on whether or not he's going to play or not. And I would say for anyone else that's worrying about the Colts practice report, don't worry. I'm going to have a video up on that after this stream, but I will say this, that I think the majority of those guys are just getting rest. So I wouldn't necessarily look too much into it. It is Wednesday. Now, if it's Friday and they didn't practice, then that's a different ball game, but it's Wednesday, guys. I mean, people do get extra days of rest on things
especially
like this.
Veterans.
And it's easier too if you just put like a fake injury on the report instead of just rest, because you can only do that so much from an NFL perspective before, stuff starts getting weird. So at the end of the day, I think it'll be okay. But yeah, we'll definitely get into the NFL predictions later on. I definitely agree that I think some people want to say that the Eagles are just going to destroy the Jags. I don't think so. I think that this is going to be a lot closer than we think, because that defense, especially for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has done impressive. They've given up only 10 points in the last 2 games. They gave up none against the Colts, and they only gave up 10 against the Jaguars. Chargers. Now, granted, both offenses, the Colts offense is a freaking mess right now, and the Chargers offense is a mess right now because of all the guys that are hurt. But I mean, you're going to go into it, like you said, with, Jalen Hurts, who right now is the second most efficient quarterback in the NFL this season. And you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who have been balling this season. And the defense for the Eagles seems to have finally figured out its motto a little bit. That'll be interesting. That'll come up a little bit later.
The only thing that scares me is the secondary for the Jags, because it's not as good as what people think it is. But we were all, skeptical on if Devin Lloyd was a good pick, with the linebacker being like the second first-round pick that they got. And it was a huge pickup for them. Trevon Walker and Josh Allen are still really good on the defensive side of the ball for the Jags. But their secondary could use a little help. So I think AJ and Devontae will tear it up. But I think that, this Jags offensive line and this Jags run game will keep them in the game. This time around.
I totally agree with you. I think that they definitely can do that. Let's go to another quarterback here. Actually, who is the number 1 quarterback so far through the first 3 weeks of the season, and that's Lamar Jackson. Chase, we had to talk about it again, because Lamar Jackson again through the first 3 weeks of the season is number 1 in passer rating and total touchdowns for a quarterback right now. Besides a miracle win by the Miami Dolphins, the Ravens would be 3-0 right now, and they'd be at the top of the AFC North looking down on everybody else. And I think they are technically still number 1, tied with the Browns, obviously, because the Browns are 2-1. But I think from a points perspective, I think the Ravens have that. But is Lamar Jackson proving that it was worth it for him to not accept their deal, and that he's going to get paid what he wants next year?
Me and you talked about this on our other channel, and we both had the same thought process about this when it came to paying Lamar. It's a good start for him. I will say this, like I have no hate against Lamar, even though he's in my division and we go against him. I wish nothing but the best for him. But for me, as a guy who has seen him play over the years, I wanted to see more of what he could do in the passing game. I want to see more of him relying on his arm to win games rather than his legs. We have seen it so far through 3 games this season. And, I want him to keep it going. Yeah, granted, he played the Jets, and he's played the Patriots, who have been both banged up, both, the Jets had a terrible D. The Patriots have a good defense, but no offense. I really like the way he's trending and how well he is. He's leading the league in passer rating. They are tied for first with the second most touchdowns, right next to the Lions, shockingly, like total touchdowns. And, he's first in, passing touchdowns. So I want him to keep it going. In my opinion, will change. Do I still think that he is worth a almost $300 million contract, fully guaranteed? No. But do I think that he deserves to be paid as one of the highest QBs or highest players in the league? Absolutely. As a Browns fan, I don't think Watson was worth the $230 fully guaranteed contract. The man hasn't played in 2 years. He still was a top 5 QB when he was playing. Absolutely. But nobody in this league, except maybe Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback position, is worth a fully guaranteed contract. Like, that's just bottom line, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Lamar Jackson has kind of proven all the haters, including me. I'm changing my opinion on the way that he is. I just want to see more and see if you can continue this before I fully sit there and say definitively, yes, pay this man what he deserves, pay him what he wants, and then we'll have to wait and see.
I see some people saying that the Ravens could tag him. I would say this. There is no way on God's green earth that the Ravens can tag him. There's no way. There's not, because he will refuse to play for them. He will refuse to play for the Ravens if he gets tagged. And this isn't one of those situations where I know it'll happen. I know that Lamar Jackson will not play for the Ravens in 2023 if he is franchise tagged. I guarantee it, especially since, the man turned down, I think, what was it? A $210 million contract worth like $180 million of it guaranteed.
No, it was $250 million is what he turned down. It was $250 for 5 years, and it was $180 million like fully guaranteed. And he's just like, no, I want all of it to be fully guaranteed, or I'm not playing.
I want to look that up because I could have sworn, he turned down a 5-year extension offer with $250 million and $133 million of that guaranteed. So just over half of that contract was fully guaranteed. So the Ravens did give him the offer that he wanted. The only problem was the guaranteed money. I assume that Lamar probably would have preferred that be in the 200 range rather than 133. So again, it goes to show you the guaranteed money is what he's chasing right now. And I mean, I'll just tell you what, Chase, I mean, if he does keep doing what he's doing right now, he's going to have no problem getting it next year.
I will say there's one thing that will stop him. The one thing that will stop him is if he balls out this season. Let's say the Ravens go 14-3, finish with the number 1 seed in the AFC and ball out like normal. And then come playoff time, you get bounced from the playoffs again for the 4th time in 5 years or 4th time in 4 years, whatever it may be. The Ravens are going to question it because they're going to question, okay, he's done this good during the regular season. Why can't he take us far into the postseason? And they're going to take a long, hard look at it. Be like, okay, if he can do this in the regular season, but he can't do this in the playoff, do we pay him what he really wants and he really deserves? Because he could have another MVP type season. He could lead the league in touchdown passes. He could lead the league in passing yards. He could do all of that and more. But if he does not get you to the next level in the playoffs, the Ravens front office is going to question this hardcore and be like, all right, he wants all this money, but he can't deliver. So what are we going to do?
Ron, I got asked this, I think 2 days ago, and it's kind of funny because I don't ever expect Ballard to do that, especially for some of the contracts that we're going to have to, cough up here soon. Do not think in any way that the Colts are going to give him a $200 million guaranteed contract. And Chase, my only combat to that, and it's something that I've said several times with you on our other podcast, is that, yeah, I mean, you lose in the playoffs. I mean, that's the thing that you and I have consistently and stated that's the one criticism we have of Lamar Jackson is when it comes crunch time, it just seems like he's not the same quarterback after that, and things happen, right? And I would say this, I mean, normally I'd agree with you in that, but, even after the embarrassing performance by the Arizona Cardinals last playoffs, I mean, they still signed Kyler Murray to a $160 million guaranteed contract. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just one of those situations where, somebody's going to have to do something. And I know somebody will because somebody is going to want to take the chance on Lamar Jackson and seeing what he's doing right now. If he keeps up what he's doing, I mean, I need to see his actual stats so far through.
Oh, they are ridiculous. He's 5th in the league in rushing right now, tied with Christian McCaffrey. But my combatant argument to that of what you just said, somebody will pay him. And when the Cardinals paid Kyler but Kyler has been to the playoffs one time, and Lamar's been to the playoffs, I think a total of 4, maybe 5 times now, and has only made it past the first round one time. And the year that he went 14-2 and ended up leading the league in touchdown passes with 36 and ended up having some, like 3,600 yards passing, he got bounced in the first round there. And that was the year that he went and won the MVP. Now, what I'm saying is, yes, somebody will pay this man, but the fact is that out of 5 times going to the playoffs, and you only make it past the first round once, that's very concerning. Now, the fact with the whole Kyler thing, he's only made it one time. Lamar's made it 4 and hasn't really done much. So that's got to be very concerning to the Ravens front office, and why I think that they would be hesitant to pay him the fully guaranteed.
So far, he's completed about 64% of his passes, 750 yards through 3 games, 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. I mean, that is just absolutely insane. And then when you look at this season, yeah, I mean, he has 200 and almost 250 rushing yards as well. So the man has 1,000 yards, practically 1,000 yards of offense through the first 3 games.
He's doing this without J.K. Dobbins and his best offensive weapon being Rashad Bateman.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing. I know he's going to get paid from somewhere, but somebody has to surround this guy with talent, because I'm very concerned about, when he gets paid, like what's going to happen to the status of that team when he does get paid, because we talk about it all the time, right? Like guys get paid and sometimes they lose either the willingness to play the same way they did before, or they just end up not doing well after they sign the big contract. So that can hurt. And then on top of it, you're paying somebody a guaranteed $50 million per year in order to be able to keep him. That's $50 million. I don't even care how much the cap is going to increase next year with the new TV deals. That's still a lot of freaking money. I mean, from what it sounds like is that could end up being like 18 to 20% of the team's total cap just from one player, and that's insane to think about. So who knows what's going to happen.
Derek, I want to address one of the commenters and bidders for Lamar Jackson. He's got to make it past the tampering period of contract negotiations first. Obviously, the Ravens will have first bid on him, and they'll be able to make the first contract offer. But once free agency hits, I think in mid-March, every other team will have a chance to sign him. But there's a 2-week period where it could just be the team that he's on negotiating with him. And if they can't strike a deal, then the free agency period hits, and then people will be able to put a bid for him. So it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, where it goes. And Derek, I want to address the one that Jeff Cena had. He said, what QB prospects do you see for the Colts?
Well, I'll say this: of all the quarterbacks that I know right now that are going to be out, obviously I put Bryce Young and CJ Stroud in tier 1. Like, that's tier 1. Tier 2 is Will Levis and Tyler Hooker. That's the 2, the one from Tennessee. That's tier 2. Tier 3 is Anthony Richardson and Tyler Van Dyke. I still need to see more from them. They're raw prospects, and they got talent, but they're one of those things where you hit and miss based on where they are in the system, right? I mean, that Anthony Richardson is a mobile quarterback that can make a few throws. Tyler Van Dyke is a guy that, throws the ball all over the field. Sometimes he makes bad decisions. It's one of those situations where, like, what do you expect?
My opinion.
And then we see this comment, the same one that I see all the time. And that is the CJ will be like, all other suck-eye quarterbacks in the NFL won't do crap in the league. Like, dude, you're just like everyone else who always says the same thing when you just don't watch film. All you say is, oh, he's an Ohio State quarterback. Oh, okay, he's going to suck. Like, you don't watch the film on the guy. I mean, if you watch anything of CJ Stroud this year, he is clearly the best quarterback in college football right now. And the film is just undeniable if you watch the throws that he's making. I mean, he's making NFL throws that some of these other guys just are incapable of making. So, not going to go too far into it. That's for another conversation at large. But let's talk about.
I think Will Levis has a shot of, if he's there and Ballard really, wants to get a quarterback, I would go after Will Levis, because I think Stroud and Young will go early and won't be on the board by then. So,
okay, so let's go into another quarterback here. So Zach Wilson is back in the building and practicing. Sounds like he is back, and the Jets are predicting that he's most likely going to be the starter for this upcoming week, barring any setbacks. What do you think of this Jets team, Chase, now that Zach Wilson's going to be back? Do you think it's going to be an improvement or a downfall?
The jury is still out on Zach Wilson. Obviously, they put in too much draft capital to not have him start, so obviously he's going to be the starter this week. There's no question about that. Now, we have yet to see the Zach Wilson that they've got out of BYU. Like, if he could play to his potential that he had when he was at BYU, this Jets team would be freaking dominant. Obviously, the last half of the season last year, after he got back from his first injury, he was playing much better, starting to make better reads, better throws. But having the offensive weapons that he does, and Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Corey Davis, this team is too talented not to be able to do something. And if Zach Wilson can take that next step and that next leap, this Jets team could be a threat in their division and in the AFC. But it all really depends on Zach Wilson. Because if Zach Wilson comes back, does not play well, and he does not play well the rest of the season, we are going to be talking about, are the Jets going to move on from Zach Wilson after this season? And, they potentially will. Because you've had 2 seasons with him now. You've been able to see what he can do. And now Joe Douglas is going to have to determine, okay, we got CJ Stroud, we got Bryce Young, we got Will Levis, we got Tyler Van Dyke. This is a good crop of quarterbacks this next year. Who do we value in that quarterback position? And should we move on from Zach? Now, if he comes back and takes that next step forward, starts playing really well, the Jets rattle off a few wins, this offense is looking dynamic, then they're going to have a different conversation and be like, all right, let's continue to develop this guy and keep him playing the way that he should. Now, honestly, I think that they should go with a different head coach at the end of the season and potentially keep Zach Wilson, but that's, a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where he's going to struggle when he's going to struggle when he gets back first, because obviously missing, several weeks of football, he's going to be a little rusty. It's going to be what happens in week 5 and 6, that we start to see if they're really improving in the direction that we feel that they need to be in, right? I mean, that's going to be the big question on Zach Wilson and these Jets. I mean, the Jets have shown, hey, I mean, they can be competitive, they very good. They've been competitive in just about every game, they might have gotten beaten by 15 against the Bengals, but statistic wise, they were matching the Bengals stat for stat on everything. It's just a matter of, the Jets weren't able to convert into points the same way the Bengals were.
What a good game to come back and play. He's playing the Steelers this week, so a good game for Zach Wilson to come back and, light it up.
It's going to be a very tough one because that Steelers defense definitely is no joke, especially in getting pass rush. Certainly hope the Jets offensive line is up for the task. But
they don't have Watt,
the Steelers,
so it's not going to be
Steelers are struggling right now. The Steelers are struggling right now. The Jets, they've kept teams in it. And, this is another one where we feel like the Steelers are just not the same kind of team that they once were. So, this could be a game that the Jets could sneakily get in, but it'll all be for determination. At the end of the day, that's just how it's going to have to be. Let's go into another team that we're wondering about their future. Let's go into the Broncos. Chase, it's no weird suspicion that, the Broncos have not looked good through the first 3 weeks of the season. They're 1-2. They scored, what was it? They scored 16 points against the Seahawks. They scored 16 points against the Texans. And they scored, 11 points against the 49ers. And 2 of those were gifted to them. No touchdowns in that game for Denver. Is it high time that we start worrying about Broncos country here? Because doesn't seem to me like this whole motto of Russell Wilson and telling Broncos country that it's time to ride. I'm wondering when that time is, because right now we're not seeing it.
Broncos country, let's cry.
Love it. It's true though, right? I feel bad for the Broncos defense because the defense has only given up in grand total has only given up about 36 points through the first 3 weeks of the season. So that's 12 points on average. It's probably, if not first, it's top 5 easy. And the offense just is not doing anything to help balance it.
Yeah, that offensive line has been able to let Russ sit there and, make the throws that he needs. But obviously, it's apparent that he's missing Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf because Jerry Jeudy is not living up to the potential that everybody expected him to when Russ came in. And, Cortland Sutton, I thought would, have a big turnaround and, be that top receiver again that he was a few years back when he had 1,200 yards in the season. And they are both looking horrendous on that offensive line. The only, bright side to that offense is Javonte Williams. He's looking really good, but $245 million for Russell Wilson, and he's not performing very well. He really isn't. This is a guy who was a top 5 quarterback not that long ago, and he still is a top 10 quarterback, but he's not playing like it. He really isn't. I don't know if it's the play calling or if it's the coaching. I don't know. But they need to figure out something, and they need to figure it out very quickly. And they also need to figure out whether or not they need to bring in another offensive weapon for him to shine. Because, with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, they should have been playing very well, and they should have been at least scoring at least 20, 23 points a game or more. But they haven't. They haven't even cracked 20 yet, at least I don't think.
No, they haven't.
And that's very concerning because this defense is has been
I
playing
mean, even
well.
the Colts offense has cracked 20. I mean, come on, man. The Colts offense, which has looked like one of the worst offenses in the NFL this year. I mean, and they don't have Russell Wilson. I mean, good Lord.
Gosh, if that Colts team had Russell Wilson, it would be.
I don't know, man. I don't know. At this point, I mean, the Colts offensive line has been worse than the Broncos offensive line. I don't know what in the hell Russell Wilson would be doing right now. I don't know. I think that it's an issue of the coaching. I think the offensive scheme that they're trying to run right now is not working. I think it's having an issue. And then I also think Russell Wilson, there's been very few times where he has come and he's just not the same mobile quarterback that we're used to seeing, right? Like when the pressure comes in, we see him run around, make plays with his feet, go on the run, like 2 years ago, that was one of the few guys in the league where you wanted him scrambling around because he just made plays, right? But I mean, it just doesn't seem like that for him right now. He seems very timid. He seems like he doesn't know where to go with the football. He seems like his arm is just not there right now. I mean, it just seems like everything. I mean, I don't think I've seen him throw a deep ball yet that has looked good. Like his deep ball used to look so pretty with Lockett, but like he underthrows Judy and Sutton all the time. And I mean, give credit to Judy and Sutton for actually making plays, but I mean, their offense just looks stale. And it's surprising because you're, like you said, with Judy and Sutton, one of the better young, fast, talented young groups of wide receivers that are in the league. And then you have Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, whose statistics are practically even at this point. And Williams, who actually has like the third most touchdowns of any running back in the league right now. Like, I mean, what's going on? Like, why is this talent just not converting?
Yeah, and then you look on the defensive side of the ball, and the defensive side of the ball is still pretty good with all the pieces that they got. So, like, they don't have a first-round pick this year, so that's going to be very concerning for the Broncos, whether or not that they could bring in more talent. But, this team really needs to get their act together. Nathaniel Hackett's calling the plays, so maybe they'll have to try to figure out somebody else that can call plays or figure out a new offensive coordinator. I don't know. But right now, this Broncos team is not looking, remotely close to what everybody assumed that they would be. And it's very concerning. And anybody that's a fan of the Broncos should be very concerned right now because they are going to be, if it wasn't for the Raiders sucking the way that they are, the Broncos would be in last place in their division.
And then let's go to another thing here. Do you think that the Eagles are for real right now? Because like I said, they're one of the few teams that are undefeated in this league right now, but they are undefeated. And, their last 2 games, they've won by a increasingly large margin. Players really stepping up. Do you think that the Eagles are for real this season?
I mean, it's all about Jalen Hurts and the way that he's playing because, if this man can keep up with the way that he's going, he's in MVP contention. Obviously it's 2 weeks to tell. It's week 3. There's, still 14 weeks left of this season, and we'll have to wait and see how it can, progress and go down the line. But right now, this Eagles team's playing better than anybody in the league because they've been putting up, 30 plus points per game, have been shutting a lot, or like dominating a lot of people. And honestly, this team is just built different. Like they've got on the defensive side of the ball, you've got Nakobe Dean, you've got Jordan Davis, you've got Barnett, you've got freaking Cox still on the defensive line, and then you look in the secondary, you've got
the
James
record
Bradbury.
1 point. Stupid ads.
You got James Bradbury, you've got Darius Slay. They are all lighting it up and playing to the potential that we all assume that they would. And then you also look on the offensive side of the ball. Miles Sanders isn't playing that well, but like the AJ Brown, great pickup for them. Devontae Smith started balling out this past week, and Jalen Hurts is playing lights out too. Now you can make an argument saying that the teams that they're playing are, lackluster and not that good, but again, this week we'll see what they can do against the Jags, because I think that that's going to be a phenomenal game. It's going to be better than what people think it is, and it's going to be a true testament to how Jalen Hurts plays under pressure. But man, this Eagles team is, I think that they might be for real.
I think they definitely are. I think that secretly Howie Roseman has done a really good job of building this team. I think we gave him a lot of flack for the Jalen Hurts situation and, 3 years ago, and how this team was being handled amongst everything going on. But I really think he's done a fantastic job of getting a lot of this talent in here, and the talent is starting to work out. And, Jalen Hurts finally has some weapons, right? Some really good wide receivers that are stepping up. And that was what we were wanting to know all along, right? If can Jalen Hurts get it together? And well, you actually gave him some weapons now that he feels confident in throwing the football to, and they're doing what they needed to be doing. So, so far, Nick Sirianni's got them working really well offensively.
That dude is the key to the whole car driving, because honestly, I feel like he's the sole purpose and why the Colts offense looks stale, because I feel like he was the reason why the Colts offense was great. And then when he's ever since he's left, I feel like it's been stale and hasn't been running the way that it should. So,
I think that most Colts fans in here would probably agree with you on that. So, hey, Josh Moss with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. No message, but greatly appreciate it as always. Let's see. Here's another one, Chase, and this is one that I told you could be a controversial one. And I'm curious to see what the chat thinks of this too. We've seen what the Cowboys have done ever since Dak Prescott went down with an injury. The Cowboys have went and beaten the Bengals in week 2 at home, and then went on the road to beat the New York Giants in their own building in New York. And people are starting to ask, and it's backed up by their owner, should Cooper Rush be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys going forward? Or at least be in contention for it?
I mean, if it was anybody else in the league and any other coach, I would say yes. There would be a controversy. There would be arguments on if he's going to start, but since it's the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think so. I don't think that he's going to start. I don't think that he's going to, have a chance to be not even remotely close to being having a chance to be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys when Dak comes back. And the one sole reason is the guy who owns the team, Jerry Jones, because he is paying this guy $40 million a year, and to have him sit on the sidelines would be blasphemy. Now, Jerry Jones is the sole reason why I feel like the Cowboys are in purgatory when it comes to, going far into the NFC playoffs. Dak has the power to lead this team, but the fact that he brought in Mike McCarthy, who is a washed-up head coach, in my opinion, the fact that he paid Zeke Elliott, who has not shown his true potential or hasn't been playing to his potential like what he did back in 2018, 2019. And, he will have a say on if Dak plays or not. And he'll be in Mike McCarthy's ear saying, play Dak, or else. So, no, I don't think that there's going to be a quarterback controversy. I do think that if it was any other team in the league, there would be talks and consideration for it. But the fact that Jerry Jones basically controls this team and basically makes the big decisions, I don't think that there's going to be any issue with that coming back and being the starter right away.
Well, I mean, I think LaShawn McCoy brought this argument up on Fox Sports the other day. They said that Dak probably is going to be the starting quarterback just because of the fact that they're looking to give him all that money. But if it wasn't for the money purposes, Cooper Rush would probably be this team's quarterback, because it's no secret that this team's winning with Cooper Rush right now. I mean, regardless if it looks great or if it looks bad, they're still winning games with Cooper Rush. And I mean, they're not looking as good with Dak Prescott in the building. I mean, it was hilarious that we're even having this debate, but I think the reason we're having this debate is because Jerry Jones, the owner of the franchise, suggested it's a good idea to have this quarterback drama. Like, I'm like, what in what world is that's how you know a man knows that he is centered around drama, is the fact that he encourages a quarterback controversy. That is never a good thing in the NFL, ever. Nope. It has never once been good. But you know what it does? It sells tickets and it sells merchandise. It makes money because that's what it is. And I think he understands that his team is not built to win late in the season when it comes down to it. So make the best that you can of the drama that you have, and it makes you money, because that's what Jerry Jones is. He's a money machine. So I think it's hilarious.
And Derek, I want to add to this. Sean Payton was on a podcast recently, and he did say that he would come out of retirement to coach the Dallas Cowboys. And that is a big story on whether or not Jerry Jones would act. We saw firsthand what he was able to do with the Saints before they got Jarvis Landry, before they were able to get Chris Olave, and before they had Michael Thomas back. This was a man who coached Jameis Winston very well to be a good quarterback and was looking on par to do that before he tore his ACL. And this is also a man who went 9-8 with 4 different starting quarterbacks and almost led the Saints to the playoffs. So imagine what he can do with this Cowboys roster and how talented the offense is, how good Dak is, and how much stronger that defense is looking. Imagine what Sean Payton can do if he came in to coach this team. And I think that is the sole purpose on why Mike McCarthy may get fired at the end of this season.
I think it's very possible. I don't think that this team under Mike McCarthy is going anywhere. Nope. And Jesse, to your comment, no, we're not discussing the fact that it's good to have 2 quarterbacks you can be confident in. That's not what we're saying. We're talking about controversy of who should start. We're not talking about it's different from the Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett thing, right? Where you felt confident that Jacoby Brissett wouldn't lose you games if he had to come in a situation like that, right? That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that he is encouraging the Cowboys to make a decision week per week basis on who should be the starter. That is not a good thing. You should always know who your starting quarterback is for your football team in the NFL. And if you don't know, then that's a very scary thing, because if you don't, then it ruins chemistry both in the locker room and on the field. So that's a very scary concept to have. So CD would have 140 receptions. One last thing here before we talk about our records, Chase, and NFL predictions. Obviously, the Commanders lost again this last week. Who did they play last week? They lost to the Lions, and then they lost to the Eagles this week. Obviously, it was a big revenge game, and it just didn't work out for them. Actually, coincidentally, Carson Wentz was sacked as many times as they scored points in this game. He was sacked 8 times in this game, and they only scored 8 points. So, I mean, obviously, we're not going to assume that I'm assuming we're not going to say that, all of this is on the offensive line or that all of this is on Wentz. I mean, I think they said that probably half of those sacks were on Wentz because he just refused to get rid of the football. I mean, what do you say, Chase? Are you a little concerned with the Commanders? I mean, they beat the Jags week 1, great comeback from behind win there. But then, you give up 36 points to the Lions, and, then you come back, the Eagles come into your stadium, your quarterback's old team, and he just gets sacked 8 freaking times, man. That's a lot of times to get hit. Should they be concerned about Wentz's ability going forward in this team?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this comment. Chase kind of looks like Tom Siegel.
Wait, oh, he looks like Tom Siegel. That is
I
pretty
love
funny.
that. It is. But no, like my opinion on the Commanders is iffy. I really haven't seen them play very much. Obviously, they're missing one of their strong pieces on the defensive line in Chase Young, and a little bit more. But this offensive line is concerning. It reminds me of the Colts offensive line the year that Andrew Luck got injured so much and was, out because of the injuries that he was sustaining. But, you know, coming back versus the Lions and almost winning that game was a huge testament to his play by himself. He has been balling out over in Washington, and I know that he is looking a lot better with Washington than he did with the Colts, which kind of, begs the argument of, was it Nick Sirianni or was it Frank Reich and the Colts, or was it just Carson Wentz was not playing the way that he should? And obviously it's kind of making the Colts look bad with him balling out in Washington and Ron Rivera being the coach that he needs to make him go to that next step. But honestly, with the talent that they've got offensively, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson's going to be coming back here soon. They've got Jahan Dotson, who's been absolutely tearing it up over in Washington. And not to mention, you've got Captain Terry over there. He doesn't like to be called Scary Terry. He wants to be called Captain Terry. But you got Captain Terry over there still, playing just as great as ever. But it is a concern with the way that this offensive line is playing. And I think that is one thing that they should factor in here, because I didn't think that Carson Wentz would last. Plain and simple. I thought that he was going to come in, play so terrible that everybody would be wanting Sam Howell to step in and play quarterback and, take this team to the next level. And, I'm eating my words now, because obviously Carson's balling out. He's playing really well, got great chemistry with a lot of the receivers and everything. It's just a matter of, we'll see what he can look like going forward and see if he can continue his high level of play and keep the Commanders in a lot of games going forward. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yep. I totally agree with you. All right, let's go into records from week 3, and then we'll go into our NFL prediction for week 4. So Chase, I won the week. I rebounded after a terrible week 2. You had a 3-game lead on me from week 2, and I'm proud to say that I brought it back.
And we're tied.
We are tied at 26, 21, and 1 through the first 3 weeks of the season. I went 7-9 last week. You went 7-9 this week, and you went 10-6 last week. I went 10-6 this week. So very close. I'm happy with my selections. You had, it was a very unfortunate week for you. I felt bad in some ways. In some ways I don't. But either way, all tied back up. So we're good to go. Let's go ahead and hop into week 4 predictions for this year. So week 4, first game tomorrow night, the Dolphins taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Who do you have in this one?
Dolphins.
Taking the Dolphins in that one? Please explain.
Sir. It's kind of stupid, but I feel like they're riding a high. I feel like they are playing really well, especially having Hill and Waddle on that offensive side of the ball. Gesicki's also, slowly being a sleeper for that team. Mike McDaniels, I've been really high on this guy for the past, 3 years. I've been praying and hoping that he gets a head coaching job somewhere. And he's been one of the heart and soul of that 49ers offense and why they've been so successful. I don't think Shanahan's been calling the plays. I really think it's been Mike McDaniels calling the plays over there in San Francisco. So, and not to mention, there's something that came out the other day that kind of had me puzzled and, thinking, dating back to last year, Tua is undefeated with playing quarterbacks that have an O in their last name.
Yeah, I heard about that. I saw that stat line somewhere.
It's crazy. And it kind of begs to be seen because, this year he beat Mac Jones. Jones has an O in his last name, beat Lamar Jackson. And, now he's going up against Joe Burrow. So it's going to be very interesting if he can continue that trend going into tomorrow, and we'll have to wait and see. But, I think this Dolphins team is playing really well. And I think with the way that the Bengals have played, they had a great bounce back win against the Jets, but they had terrible losses to the Steelers and terrible loss to the Cowboys. So I think that the Dolphins are going to be too much for them, and they're going to pull out with the win tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that the Bengals and the Dolphins both have shown that they can win when it's an ugly win, but I also think that the Dolphins have shown a lot less weaknesses. One thing that kind of does concern me is the health of Tua. He came back in that game Sunday after a video showed of him clearly looking concussed, like he fell over several times from it. And they reportedly took him to the locker room, did a test on him, concluded he wasn't concussed, and he came back into that game. And obviously the NFL is investigating that because of the video that was shown that's clearly showed that something was wrong with Tua, and people are wondering, well, how did he get back into the game? This guy should have been taken off the field because he clearly looked concussed. So you got understanding as to the legitimacy of the concussion test. Very concerning nonetheless. I'd assume that Tua's playing. I would assume.
They've already said that he is.
Yeah. They said that unless something else happens, they assume that he is. I guess I'm going to pick the Dolphins too until they cool off. I can't pick against them right now because they're just playing too well. Okay. Yeah. London game, Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. The Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints.
This is a tough one, especially with the way the Saints have been playing. And the Vikings barely squeaked out a win against the Lions. The Vikings offenses look stale. But I'm going to have to go with the Saints only because this, from what it seems like, will be a primetime game. And Kirk Cousins does not perform well in primetime. He has not over his career, and it's been proven. He's won one primetime game in the last, I think 4 years. So I'm going to go with the Saints in this one.
Yeah, I mean, do you consider this prime time though? Is it really considered prime time? I mean, I could see why you would say that because it's going to be broadcasted, right, to everyone on CBS because you're right. It's the only game that's going to be on during that time. So I'd probably go the same here as well. Even though I'd like to say the Vikings because the Vikings, even though Jefferson got completely locked up by Okudah, they still found a way to win that game regardless. But again, like you said, prime time. Kirk Cousins hasn't won a game in prime time. So it's kind of one of those situations. Okay. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Detroit Lions.
I'm going to go with the Lions. I mean, you're talking about a team that before last week was putting up 30 something points a game. And DeAndre Swift, who was balling out, this whole offense is balling out. This is without Jameson Williams in the lineup still. He won't be back until either next week or the following week, but I'm going with the Detroit Lions. I think Dan Campbell's got them playing really well. I think that this team is looking good. And if they did not collapse defensively last week, they would have won that game against the Vikings. They'd be 2-1 in the NFC North, and we would be talking about them as potential wild card candidates and potentially even overthrowing the Packers in that division and winning that division. So I'm going with the Lions, especially with how bad the Seahawks are.
I'll say this. I wish that this was something we would be doing on Friday when we hear more about the injury report because DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra Brown are not practicing today because of injuries. Swift is likely to not play whilst Brown is probably going to be a questionable one. Very scary to think about because if I knew both of those guys weren't playing, I'd probably say the Seahawks, but just at the fact that the Lions have been playing a whole heck of a lot better, I'll probably go with the Lions here as
I mean,
well.
you still got Jamal Williams as a running back, and he's still a very good capable.
I still think they're gonna make things work. I hope that if Amon is playing, then I think they'll be okay offensively. And then obviously,
even if not,
Okuda,
they got Josh Reynolds and DJ Chark. So
yeah, and then Okuda has been locking people down all season so far.
Ohio State product,
one of the best corners in the NFL right now. I mean, he has shut down 3 of some of the best wide receivers in the game so far this season. So I think he'll do the same thing against Metcalf and Lockett. So
it's the Ohio State boys, Denzel Ward,
Ohio State boy.
And Jeff
was picked right after Chase Young too. It was Chase Young and then Jeff Okuda. So Okuda's been hurt through the first couple years, and he's finally healthy now, and he looks like the corner that the Lions were hoping to get with the 3rd overall pick. So
definitely,
hopefully it stays that way. Jets versus the Steelers.
I'm going to go with the Jets. I mean, honestly, with the way that the Steelers are playing, they are 0-6 now without TJ Watt in the mix. And, it's a very different defense without TJ Watt in that lineup. And I think that the offense is kind of stale with the way that Matt Canada is running it with Mitch Trubisky. And I think that the Jets have the potential to win this week, and a great game for Zach Wilson to come back and play. I'm going to go with the Jets.
I'm going to go with the Steelers here. Zach Wilson being back, I just think he's going to be extremely rusty. I think that offense is going to struggle at times because he's going to have to get used to playing again. And I mean, I know it was only a couple weeks, but a couple weeks off for a quarterback can really mess your rhythm up. And, he hasn't played in a regular season game yet. So I'm going to have the Steelers in a low scoring game, but I think the Steelers are going to win this. Bears and the Giants.
It's sad to say, but I'm going to choose the Giants. Even without Sterling Shepard, they'll probably have Kadarius Toney back this week. The Bears defense is, been giving up a lot been giving up a lot of big runs and everything. I think Barkley's going to have a day. They're probably going to lean on him more than what they normally do for this next week. But I think the Giants are going to come out on top with this one, especially with how bad the Bears have been. They almost lost to the Texans. They're going to lose to the Giants this week.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out, like, when it comes to overall rushing yards. I mean, they've definitely allowed a lot more rushing first downs than what they have achieved. So, it definitely is one of those situations where, I mean, if they don't stop Saquon, Saquon showed you, Saquon was keeping them in that game for the majority of it. Saquon went off against the Cowboys, and that's probably the only way that I could see that the Bears would actually win it is if they were able to run the ball the way they did against the Texans. I don't believe that they're going to get 150 yards rushing against this Giants defense. While the Cowboys definitely could run the ball on the Giants, it didn't destroy the Giants defense. I just think, yeah, like you said, the Giants, I think they're going to want to come out and, rebound off this loss. And I think that they're going to do that as well.
Yeah, and the Bears really have no offensive weapons other than Darnell Mooney to be scared of. So, It's not like they got a CeeDee Lamb on that side. It's not like they've got a Michael Gallup or anything. So I think that, with the Bears, if they had other offensive weapons, I would say the Bears, but they don't. And it's nothing to be scared of for the Giants. So I'm going to go with the Giants easily in this one.
Titans versus the Colts.
I'm shockingly going with the Colts.
Why are you shockingly going with the Colts?
Because the Colts, other than last week, haven't really looked very well. The offense has been...
Yeah, but so is the Titans. Like, what do you say?
The Titans played pretty damn well against the Raiders. If it wasn't for a...
Well, yeah, they won, but I'm talking like you're in the same sense saying that, the Titans are 1-2. They beat a Raiders team that's 0-3, and their coach might get fired midway through the season.
If it wasn't for a missed kick at the beginning of the season, they would be 2-1 right now.
And if it wasn't for that same thing, the Colts would be 2-1 right now. These are the same teams. Both teams offensively terrible. They finally both got their first real win week 3. So they're both trying to come in and, rebound off that. I mean, it's just, I don't really think there's a situation. I'll say this. I'm going with the Colts too, because the Titans are without Taylor Lewan. So their best offensive lineman. He's already been concluded he's going to be out. So, the Colts, I look for them to continue to be aggressive like they were against Patrick Mahomes. I think that this defensive line can get pressure on Tannehill, and Derrick Henry hadn't had a 100-yard rushing game till this last week. And I believe he got 100 rushing yards, but either way, like the Titans, from a standpoint of that, I still think the Colts will be able to do enough. I hope that this offensive line does enough to protect Matt Ryan, because this defensive line, even though they lost Harold Landry, that Titans defensive line can get after it. So I'm really hoping that, they're able to still prevent that from happening. But I'm glad you're going with the Colts, but I'm going Colts as well.
Well, not only that, like if you guys have Shaq back, it's going to be a massive difference on defense.
That's the big one. Yeah. And we do believe Shaq's going to be back. I think that if he plays if he's full participant in practice all week, then I would assume that he's going to play, because it'd be 3 straight weeks.
Colts will absolutely positively
maybe hopefully win. Nomadic. I love you, Nomadic. Thank you. All right. Chargers versus the Texans.
Even with the Chargers banged up, I'm going with the Chargers. I mean, the Texans, they can't compete right now. Obviously, they're still in a rebuild mode. They're still they think that Davis Mills is the guy, and I think that they're still going to ride with him, but they don't have enough offensive firepower right now. And defensively, they're still rebuilding. So I'm still going to go with the Chargers, even though they're banged up. He's getting Keenan Allen back. It's going to be a huge pickup. And, even with that, the Texans don't have a great pass rush. So they're not going to be getting after Justin Herbert as much. So this will be an easy win for the Chargers, in my book, my opinion.
Yeah, I'll go the same way. I mean, it's a well-known fact that, teams can run the ball however they like on the Texans. And even with a team that's been struggling to run the football, I think that they're going to get back to that this week. And I think they're going to be able to figure that out. So I'll go the Chargers as well. Browns versus the Falcons.
Browns.
I don't know why I even had to ask that. But I'll go Browns as well. I mean, you guys have been controlling the line of scrimmage on both ends. I don't know how big of a loss it's going to be with Myles Garrett being gone this week, but I do look for you guys to continue to control time of possession with Chubb and Kareem Hunt running the football. And if Prescott plays like he did against the Steelers this last week, then I have no issue saying that the Browns will win.
Yeah, it'll be a blow losing Garrett, but I think Clowney will be back this week. Not to mention, our defense is still pretty healthy for the most part. We lost Anthony Walker last week, but the guy stepping in, taking his place, is still phenomenal at the defensive position, or at the linebacker position. JOK will be back this week as well. Not to mention, our offense is still running on all cylinders right now. So,
Commanders versus the Cowboys.
I'm choosing the Commanders.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm choosing the Commanders, even as well as the Cowboys have been playing with Cooper Rush. I think that Carson Wentz is going to have a bounce back game. Yes, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence are probably going to be in the backfield a lot, but I think that the Cowboys have given up a lot of big chunk plays to a lot of good wide receivers and a lot of good teams. The Commanders can't run the ball that much, but they still got Captain Terry in the back, and they got Jahan Dotson and even Curtis Samuel. So I think that the Commanders are going to come out firing on all cylinders and beat the Cowboys.
Now, if this was an Alex Smith-led Commanders team, I would agree with you in this sense, but we saw what happened last week. Carson Wentz, when he was under duress, he had no idea what to do with the football. And if there's one thing that the Cowboys have done a really great job of this season on defense, is they got the best pass rusher in the NFL right now, and that is Micah Parsons. From a stat standpoint, Micah Parsons is absolutely destroying teams. I think he has 6 or 7 sacks through the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So he is just lighting it up on teams right now. And I think that it's just going to be too much. I don't trust Carson Wentz after what we just saw against the Eagles, them getting consistent pressure. I think if the Cowboys do the same thing, I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. So I'm choosing the boys here.
Derek, Micah Parsons only has 4 sacks.
4 sacks. All right. Well, either way, it still kind of proves my point. He's still at a pressure rate. He is forcing people away a lot more often than what people are thinking. So I think that from the defensive line perspective, I think they're going to get to him a lot more. But, okay. Next one, the Jaguars versus the Eagles.
I'm going to go with the Jags. You know, I was not high on them. I was picking against them for the first 3 weeks of the season. I picked against them this last week against when they played the Chargers. And that game, watching it, like I actually, since the Browns played on Thursday, I actually had a chance to watch other games. And I actually put that on, watched it from start to finish. And with the way that they were making plays happen, the way that they were doing everything, the way the defense stepped up and everything like that, and the fact that it was against the Chargers of all people, a team who we had, like a lot of people had picked to, you know, go to the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl. It, even with the Chargers injured the way that they were, they still 38-10 is unbelievable. And I think that, yes, do I think that the Eagles are going to make it a lot closer game? Absolutely. Do I think that the Jags are going to win by 20? No, I think it's going to be the Jags are going to win it, but it's going to come down to the final, you know, minute of the game. And we're going to see whose kicker is more accurate. So I'm going to go with the Jags in this one.
I can definitely see where the Jags win this. I think that from a totalitarian standpoint, that I think the Jaguars might be the most complete team that the Eagles have had to face so far. But I also think it goes the opposite way as well. This is clearly the best team that the Jaguars have had to face all season because, you know, they, for the most part, they're playing cupcakes, especially when the Chargers were throwing out there a 60% Justin Herbert without his best weapon, without their best offensive lineman, without 3 of their best defensive players. They played an unhealthy Chargers team. And I do understand the concept of them just blowing teams out right now. But I think the Eagles can actually get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, and their corner Darius Slay is playing very well right now. Shut down Justin Jefferson. I expect him to shut down whoever is in front of him in this game as well. I could see this being like a 28-24 game. I think both of these teams definitely can win it, but I'm going with the Eagles here. I think Sirianni is going to be a little bit more creative on how to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And while I give credit to the Jaguars, they'll make it difficult for them. I still think the Eagles in actuality is just a better team right now.
The only thing that's making me pick the Jags over the Eagles is also Doug Peterson, because he coached this team for several years. He knows this team inside and out. Even with the new acquisitions, they still got a lot of the old veteran players.
I understand.
He'll know how to exploit them.
Though, when this coaching staff completely overhauled, like
no, he wasn't.
He was kicked out of the building, and Sirianni and all these new coaches that he brought in with them, they run a completely different system now than what Doug Peterson did.
Right, but it's still the same. It's still a lot of the same players, like Fletcher Cox, Barnett, all of them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The way that everything does know a little bit of the. I definitely bet that you could understand what the weaknesses are for some of those players. I definitely agree. But I think that the way the Eagles are running things are different than what Peterson. So Peterson's not going to have an advantage scheme-wise taking this on just because of knowing some of the players that are on that team. So
it'll be interesting.
Yes, it will. Bills versus the Ravens.
Bills.
Yeah, I'm going with the Bills here too. I think this is the game where Lamar doesn't quite go crazy. The Bills did a fantastic job defensively of limiting the Dolphins. I mean, I think, their only offense in that game was Jalen Waddle, who had 4 receptions for 102 yards. And that was it. I mean, that there was nothing else that the Dolphins did well in that game. It was just enough from Waddle to make it happen. And, if the Bills can somehow limit Lamar to his running ability, then I believe the Bills will bounce back. I think
they're going to be
they got
embarrassed last week.
They got embarrassed on last Sunday, but I think that they're going to bounce back in this one. So we both got the Bills.
They're going to be upset after last week's
loss.
Yeah,
100%.
Sure.
Absolutely. Cardinals versus the Panthers.
I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Going with the Panthers, huh?
Going with the Panthers. I mean, Kyler Murray had a comeback win against the Raiders. He did not look very well. It did not look very good at all. The Panthers have a better secondary than what the Raiders do, and I think that they're gonna shut down whoever their best weapon is. I think it's Hollywood Brown at this point. They're gonna shut him down. The pass rush is gonna get to Kyler Murray. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're still without J.J. Watt, so who knows what's going to happen. And I think that if they can rely on CMC for this game and pound him down the Cardinals' throat, they will win this game, period.
I think the Cardinals win this game. I've not been impressed with the way the Panthers have been running their offense. Their offense has looked stale. It's looked very atrocious, given the fact that you have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Christian McCaffrey on that offense, and yet you're only averaging 20 points a game right now. It's just not enough to convince me of anything. Now, I understand that their defense definitely is a lot more athletic, but I think that Kyler is looking to come back with a vengeance this week. So I think the Cardinals win this one. Broncos versus the Raiders. Very interesting pick here, Chase. Do you go with the team that is 0-3 with their coach's career hanging in the balance, or do you go with the team that has barely been squeaking by?
Broncos country, let's cry again. I'm going with the Raiders.
Okay. Oh man, what do I do here? I don't know what to do here, man. I mean, the Broncos are not deserving of 2-1 right now. They are not deserving of it.
You could always choose the alternative option and go with the paperclip and a piece of string.
True. No, it's not. This is their playoff hopes. I'm gonna go Raiders here too. I think that if this isn't the game where the Raiders win, then Josh McDaniels may not even make it out of the stadium before being fired. That's very possible. So
you can't even blame Josh McDaniels for the losses. The Raiders have.
Yes, of course you can. Of course you can.
Blame him.
They've gotten all of these offensive this offensive talent, and yet somehow, some way, they haven't even scored 26 points one time. They haven't.
You cannot blame Josh McDaniels. Their defense is the whole reason why they lost last week, because they let Kyler come back in that game, and then not to mention, like, the Titans, they could not stack the box versus Derrick Henry. The Titans had no good wide receivers, and yet you can't stack the box and stop Derrick Henry. Like, come on now. No, you cannot blame Josh McDaniels for the Raiders.
I can blame their coaching. Blame him for one. I can blame their coaching, because it's no secret that in all 3 of their games, they had a lead at one point, and then they just couldn't hold on to it. I mean, that's coaching. That's inability to come back from that deficit and things of that nature. I mean, it's no secret that, I mean, again, I don't care how bad your defense is. Like, this Raiders team is trash right now. Dude, I mean, they scored 22 on the Titans, 23 on the Cardinals, and 19 on the Chargers. I get the Chargers won because the Chargers have a really good defense, and when they were playing week 1, I get that. But 23 points against the Cardinals, and you had that in the third quarter. You got shut out in overtime and the fourth quarter. And then in the Titans game, they were losing the majority of that game. They had to come back and win and try to win it. So I mean,
again, it's the defense. Like, you can't blame Josh McDaniels for that.
Where was the offense through 3 quarters of that last game, Chase? I mean, they had 7 points going into I think they had 7 or 8 points going into the fourth quarter.
But they came back and they
that
got it
team
close.
with Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr should not be averaging 20 points a game. They should not. That team should be averaging 28 to 29 points a game. And they're not. Their offense is not good. But I'm saying that I'm picking them because they have the most incentive to win this game. The Broncos lose, they're 500. The Raiders lose, their season's done. They have no chance. Going 0-4, I don't think there's ever been a team in NFL history that has come back to win and make it to the playoffs going 0-4 to start a season. So their season is done if they lose this game. So that's why I'm picking them. It's the one and only time I would pick them because there's so much on the line when it comes to the Raiders. But we'll see how it goes. I definitely think the Broncos should win it, but we'll see. Patriots versus the Green Bay Packers.
Packers.
Yeah, I'm going Packers here too.
Nothing needs to be said. Packers.
You did you pick Broncos or did you pick Raiders?
I picked Raiders.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. So Raiders, we both picked the Raiders. Okay, so you said Packers. I'm definitely going with you there. We don't know the status of Mac Jones right now. And
out for
the
6
Patriots.
weeks.
Yeah, I mean it's depends on him, but at the end of the day, like the Patriots just aren't looking good right now. So I'll take the Packers' chances. Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs versus the Buccaneers.
I'm going with the Chiefs. You know, obviously they had issues with Eric Bieniemy and Patrick Mahomes in this offense this last week against the Colts. They should have won that game. They didn't. I was shocked that they didn't win that game. But, you know, the Bucs are hurting defensively. The Bucs are hurting offensively. They're getting Mike Evans back this week. They still don't have Chris Godwin. They just got Cole Beasley. And Julio's out as well. So I'm going with the Chiefs this week. Battle of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes again. And this time Patrick Mahomes comes out on top. I'm going with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs. They got embarrassed, and I think that they're going to come back out firing, and the Buccaneers have not looked good. So I will definitely take the Chiefs. Monday Night Football, the Rams and the 49ers.
If the 49ers play as pathetic as they did with Jimmy G this past week, barely squeaking out air, like barely losing to the Denver Broncos, just imagine what Aaron Donald and that defense is going to do to Jimmy G. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams here as well. I mean, the 49ers looked absolutely terrible. And Trent Williams is going to be out for a couple weeks. So, you know, the best offensive lineman in football is going to be out. They're already having enough difficulty moving the ball down the field with all the injuries that they have. So, I'm definitely going Rams here, 100%. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon / evening. Chase, thank you so very much for tuning in. I think this is your first time ever on this show.
Yep.
So
thank you everybody for enjoying. Yeah, no problem. Thank you everybody for having me on here. I love talking football with this man. We've had a lot of strong debates over the years, and
yes, we have.
and still do it to this day. So, like you said, tune into our other channel, Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. We're gonna be setting up a video probably tomorrow, so tune in for that as well. Thank you guys for tuning into this show and keep it going.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you guys again so much for the continued support. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.
Go Browns.